We're joined now by my dad, who's going to take us through some of the fundamentals that you're going to need to use to be successful at Augusta. And of course by Jason Rowe, MD of Golfers Club and our resident equipment expert. Jay, you're going to talk to us a little bit about some of the equipment that will be on show that the guys will be using there. And it's a very interesting topic because a lot of guys do make subtle changes to what's in their golf bag to be successful at Augusta.
Yeah, you know, Don, I think that Augusta is a different kind of animal. You know, in the old days, you could hit it just about anywhere and they had very short rough. And over a period of time, they've toughened the course up quite significantly. And I think a lot of the guys might opt for a hybrid as opposed to a 3-iron. They might opt for a 3-wood, maybe a stronger 3-wood that they can use for driving to keep it in the fairway because, you know, as I said, they've grown the rough up quite significantly. And there's going to be a huge precedent on putting and controlling the spin on the ball, because we know what can happen when you overspin it there or underspin it, whatever the case may be. We see sometimes the ball's right near the hole and the next minute it starts catching one of those slopes and you've got a 50-footer. So I think it's a different kind of golf course, and I think guys will be changing their bags up a little bit. You
know, obviously over the years, you get a winner, six-time winner, Jack Nicklaus. Nobody could hit the ball higher and softer than he did. You know, what are the key fundamentals to pay attention to in order to get that type of result with your ball flight?
Well, as Jason said now, I think it's important that you take a club like a hybrid in. If you remember that Ray Floyd won, I think he was the first player ever to play a major of that stature with a 5-wood. So obviously your priority is to get it up in the air. And as you said, with Nicklaus hitting it, you know, he was very upright. He hit it very high and soft. But they also said, which was fascinating, that you couldn't win at Augusta with a left to right game. Now, Nicklaus won 6, and so did Tiger's won 4. And then Tiger came in with the zing around the corner at 13. He specifically designed his game, or sort of invented a shot specifically for that one hole. So the innovation is always at Augusta because you have the premiums not on driving. It's getting the ball not even close to the hole. The premium is getting it into a right position on the hole that you don't 3-putt. So you very seldom get a player winning at Augusta that can't play, is not a stroke maker. You very seldom get a scrambler winning. But again, that's a bit of a contradiction because then you think of Seve. He won at Augusta, missing fairways by miles.
But I must come in there. You know, if you look at when Seve won, you know, there wasn't nearly the rough that there is now, and he had the ability that, you know, they've grown in trees on the 17th and the 15th, so those holes were holes that he was particularly successful on, and he was able to get around. But you touched on it earlier, the ability to not necessarily get the ball close to the hole, but leave it on the right side of the hole. You know, I think until you've been to Augusta, you don't get a real appreciation for the type of undulation confronting the player. So pace putting is crucial. What are some of the key thoughts in order to get the pace right as quickly as possible?
When they've got a 50-footer, you will notice that the players will focus totally on the hole and simulate the subconscious of how hard they're going to hit it. On a pace putt, you've got to judge the distance. When you look at the hole and you imagine how hard you've got to do it, when you actually focus on the hole, not the ball, focus on the hole and just picture your pace, you will see that done an awful lot. Jim Furyk is possibly the best example of that. He sets himself up, looks at the hole, judges it, gets over the ball. It's a pain in the neck to watch. Then he'll back off, then get up and then hit the ball. But all he's doing, he's not thinking of the stroke, he's thinking of pace and nothing else.
Well, it's not very common that you have a golf course where you've got to marry pace with a spot on the green, you know, with these huge breaks. You know, how do you go about, you know, adjusting to that problem that the guys have?
You know, to the viewer, what you've got to take into account, you've got no idea of how quick the greens are. So with the quickness and the slope, you've obviously got to borrow an awful lot more than you normally do. Again, you know, to the viewer, a slow green doesn't break as much as a fast green. So again, you will see the players picking up a spot. I think the 16th is a good example, the short hole, top tier down to the bottom. That can sometimes break 10 meters. You know, it's incredible, 30 foot. So you'll see them again trying to judge hitting the ball up the hill, catching the slope and then dying. Now, again, it takes an incredible amount of imagination. This is why legend has it that you never win first time out at Augusta. You have to get used to the pace and the break. But again, to marry them both, there's no real gimmick. It's skill and familiarity with the course.
As we see a lot of the guys during the practice rounds, they're spending, 2/3 of their time on the greens, distance control, all of that. They know the strategy on the course. They've got their lines off the tee, but most of the work's done on the greens. Now, Jay, you've come along today with one of the new putting grips on the scene, and tell us a little bit about the success the guys are having with that little piece
Don,
of
the
machinery.
Superstroke has been an absolute revelation on the tour. I think 3 of the last 7 winners this year have been using Superstroke, and I think the key with the Superstroke grip, Don, is that it remains the same thickness throughout. So what tends to happen when we get a little bit flicky in the stroke is the right hand tends to go. So this slows the right hand down quite a bit, and also on those short putts, you have the ability to keep the putter face very square. And the tendency with the average player at home is he tends to manipulate the club face a little bit. So I think the pros, after knocking in 4-footers for their dinner, year in, year out, they start getting a little bit jumpy. And I think the Superstroke has made a big difference to those guys who feel that they're probably not, their nerves are a little bit frayed, and they're probably not as as good as they used to be when they were 20 and 21. Yeah. So the Superstroke has been a big thing on the tour, and a lot of guys have got it on their putters.
Dad, one of the players likely to be successful this week, Zach Johnson, the wedge play is going to be crucial to him. How do you go about being a little bit more consistent with the wedge around Augusta?
Well, I think you'll notice that Stricker is another one that's brilliant on the short iron stuff. You'll find that they work tremendously from their shoulders. You'll see Zach Johnson, he takes the club back a little bit on the inside, very rotational on the shoulders, but through the ball you'll see the left side clear, but the club is clearing on a shallow path. The myth is that you pick the club up and chop down on the thing. That gets pop, it doesn't get spin. Yeah. So again, dead hands, you'll listen to the commentators saying he's very quiet with the hands. That's actually not true. His hands aren't working because the shoulders are working. That's exactly what you're discussing with putting. If your shoulders work, you won't get breakdown in the wrist. So again, to the viewer, I think you'll watch Stricker, to a certain degree Furyk, funnily enough, but great shoulders, Zach Johnson, great shoulders, Jason Day, another one, great shoulders through the ball, but you'll see that the hands are very quiet. And you won't see a massive amount of spin like Greg Norman in the old days. They don't do that anymore at Augusta because of the slopes.
So Jay, that's obviously important. You've come along today with one of the Vokey wedges. Selecting the right bounce is going to be crucial.
Absolutely, Don. I mean, Zach, we watched the thing on the inside of the PGA Tour, and I always found him a very boring player. And when he won the Masters a couple of years ago, I don't think a lot of people know, but he never went for any of the par 5s in 2. He just absolutely obliterated the par 5s, and there's more than one way to skin a cat. He obviously used his wedges. From 100 metres and in, there's no better exponent than the wedge. He'll be using the Titleist Vokey SM5, which is the new range of Titleist wedges. They've got a special treatment on the face that imparts the maximum amount of spin. And it's not always about imparting the maximum amount of spin, it's imparting the right amount of spin. Because those greens are so undulating. If you get onto the top step and the pin sitting at the top step and you overspin it, you could have a 50-footer when you look up again. So I think that, as Moose says, Steve Stricker, Jim Furyk, Zach Johnson, they're all great exponents of the wedge, and I think that they're always going to be there come Sunday afternoon. Perhaps somebody on the other extreme, Henrik Stenson, undoubtedly the best golfer in the world over the last 12 months. He's got the power game, brings it in high. But Jay, a little bit of an equipment change going into 2014. Yeah, I think, Callaway, what happened was he was using a set of Callaway Legacy irons, and the Callaway Legacy is a Japanese spec iron. And in South Africa, or in the US, they sell them as Apex. And they bought the Ben Hogan company many years ago, so they have license to the Apex name. And they're forged irons, beautiful, very expensive, 15,000 rands worth. I think that his greatest attribute is the way he controls his irons in terms of distance, and that is a massive thing at Augusta. He hits that strong 3-wood of his, or 2-wood, whatever you want to call it, so far. His irons aren't going to let him down. It's just a matter of the putter behaving, and he could be in with a shout. Dad, why don't you give us one pick in closing?
I go Stenson, and for a place, Spieth and McIlroy.
Okay, very interesting. And you, Jay? Okay.
You might laugh at me, but I think that it's time for Sergio. He's certainly matured, and his putter's finally working, and he drives the ball so straight, and his short game is magnificent. But for me, I think come Sunday, Jason Day will be putting on the green jacket. He's playing unbelievable golf. He's aggressive. He's not scared to win, and I think when it gets tight on that last 9 holes on Sunday, the guys stop breathing, and I don't think Jason Day is like that. He's had a couple of close shaves. He nearly won the year that Charles Schwartzel won, but I think Jason Day is my pick.
Well, I think all of those guys in contention, and we've touched on Zach Johnson. He's my favourite going into this year. Just had a great start to the year, great strategy around there, and putts beautifully, and that's always got to be a key going forward. So let's cross back over to Dan and Sean now and see how the punters go about settling down on their picks.